everyone. Welcome to this special series of interview with past winners of YMP Award. As you know, the awards recognizes young professionals, so a male and a female under the age of 40 in the mining industry who over the past year and in the course of their career have demonstrated exceptional leadership skill, innovative thinking, and provided value for their companies, their shareholders, and themselves. But this interview is all about getting to know the past winners a little more on a personal basis. So today my guest is Steve Jong, the CEO of VRIFY and Chairman of Integra Resources. And he's also the 2018 YMP Peter Munk Award. So Steve, welcome. Got to speak to you again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So I'll start as I start all of the interview. How did you start your career in the mining industry?
So I do not come from a long list of or a long line of miners. I started my career in the industry in 2008. I was just finishing up some business school at University of Victoria and at Royal Roads, and a family friend of ours had a lot of success in the last 30 years in the sector and ran a bunch of junior exploration companies in Vancouver. So I was literally just looking for a job. I took a job. I started photocopying brochures, kind of helping with investor relations stuff and so on. And it was part of a group of 9 exploration companies that all shared an office. So fortunately, I got exposed to a lot of different things. And this was part 2. So it was a fun time.
So my next question is a bit tricky because I think the answer is a bit personal, but just to you, when we talk about success, what comes or who comes to mind just about success or to be successful?
I missed the last, sorry, my speaker cut out there. Success and who comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean, what comes to mind when someone talks about success or to be successful? I know it's like very personal and it differs from person to person, but just to you, what it means.
It's a really good question. I think there's an overemphasis on financial success, and that's not mining, that's just society in general. I think that's what we all look towards is kind of like who is the richest, who has kind of done the best financially and so on. I think success to me is obviously to be successful, especially in the business world, mining or anything or else, financials is a part of it. But it's success is sort of what have you actually created? What if and I'll use mining as an example. There are a lot of people in the mining sector that have created, excuse me, that have created phenomenal companies, but maybe at the time that happened and so on, they didn't realize the financial success of the person who had one drill hole and their company got bought at 1,000 times share price, even though that never actually turned into anything. So success to me is specifically in the mining sector is people who have actually created things, just created something that they can stand behind, and whether it's a week or years or a decade later, say kind of I did that, and it's sort of there was a positive benefit to both shareholders and just the people in general on sort of what they did.
And is there someone in the industry you look up to? Or it could be more than one person as well.
Yeah, there are a few. I've worked really closely with someone named George Salamis. He's the CEO of Integra. He was the executive chairman of Integra Gold when I was the CEO. Somebody who's gone through sort of logging core in the early days for Placer Dome all the way through and held a bunch of different roles. Someone who's kind of experienced success and experienced kind of the lows of the industry as well. I've always had a ton of respect and always looked up. George has been a real mentor to me. That's someone obviously it's a little closer to home. But after 30 years in the sector, I think it's easy. I don't have 30 years experience in the sector, but you see a lot of sort of jaded personalities based on sort of the experiences they go through. So I've always looked up to George because he's been able to keep a sense of humor, which I think is really important in any role in any position anywhere. The other ones I think are just like the builders, the people who like Nolan Watson and Dave Oram at Sandstorm and sort of these individuals who have taken sort of an idea and a concept and actually built it into something. There are a lot of people in our sector who have done extremely well kind of geologically with big discoveries. It's just so hard. Like that is such a low probability game, exploration in general. And because I don't have a geological background, I don't understand always sort of everything that went into that. So I tend to lean more towards sort of the financial, kind of the builders, the entrepreneurs, and so on. Yeah, there's a long list of them in the sector, but to me, it's anyone who's just built something from scratch.
Right. And I guess like now you're kind of in a position of leadership in your role as CEO and chairman. So what do you think it takes to be a good leader?
A lot of different things. I think more than anything else, you have to be willing to do anything yourself. I think empathy is really important. I think you need to understand where your people are coming from. I think COVID has taught us that sort of we're just in a different environment, and sort of people react differently. And I found, and not even just with the at VRIFY, which I run now, we have about 45 employees. So it's, you find when you're engaging with different people, you kind of always have to take a step back and think about like, what is the situation that this person is in? And if I'm in the mining sector and I'm talking to a gold CEO who his company is doing great, that's very different than talking to somebody who's kind of running a tech company in sort of the travel sector, who his company is obviously not doing that well in this time. So I think just as a leader in general, you always need to be thinking about like putting yourself in the shoes of the person you're speaking with, and whether it's sort of you're their manager or you're just a sort of somebody having a sales conversation or any just a conversation with a peer in the sector. I found that for me personally, that's benefited a lot, and not only because you're trying to make them feel better, it just helps you kind of gain perspective on kind of the situation. And any conversation or dialogue I have, whether it's with an employer or anyone, I always just try to start with 5 minutes of, it's the chit chat, the small talk, but you're also trying to understand sort of where is this person coming from, and how can kind of we learn a little bit about each other in the situation we're in the first couple minutes that will help facilitate a better conversation over the next kind of hour or whatever it is. I've found that really helps. Yeah, and then I think the other thing for leadership is you have to, if you're the CEO, if you're sitting at the top of the pyramid or the food chain, you have to make decisions. I think we all spend a lot of time, and I've learned this a lot, especially in the last, I'd say, year or two. There's a balance between kind of making decisions by consensus and getting everyone's buy-in, and just being the leader and making that decision. Because ultimately, that's what people need. People need to know that somebody at the end of it is going to make a decision, and we can put all the facts on the table, and it can be kind of 50-50, should we go this way or that way? Everyone in your entire organization needs confidence that somebody will make a decision and stand by it. Somebody sent me, well, actually someone on our team sent me this yesterday, and it was something from Jeff Bezos at Amazon. I don't know how many years ago he'd said this, but it was sort of tier 1 decisions and tier 2 decisions. And sort of, we all tend to think that everything is actually a tier 1 decision where we need to really think about it's going to change the direction of our company. But a lot of tier 2 decisions, they literally just need someone to make a choice, and they're not going to kind of, if they're the wrong choice, we can recover from that. And it's better to just make a decision, find out we're wrong, and recover than spend a month kind of getting everyone's buy-in and wasting time and so on. So ultimately, I think that is leadership. It's literally just being able to make a choice, stand by it, and kind of have the conviction, stand behind your decision, and tell your team this is what we're going to do.
And what advice would you give to your 20-year-old self?
What advice would I give to my 20-year-old self? Save money. That's a really good question. What advice would I give to my 20-year-old self? So if I look at, I learned a lot going through university, but I took 9 years to do a 4-year degree. And it's as kind of, when I look back at that, it was like, I had a lot of great experiences and so on, but at the same time, like that was a waste of money. I should have kind of buckled down and did it. So it's like, it's interesting now to think back at that time and all the things that I could have done if I just buckled down and done for my 4 years of school and kind of, I got to a point where sort of all my friends from first year were now kind of going and doing kind of business school abroad and these other things. And I was literally kind of trying to catch up with second and third year courses. And I look back at that time and I don't have any regrets from it. It is what it is. But I think that's one thing. Maybe it's just the parent in me talking now is I would have focused on, I would have taken a few things a little bit more seriously. That being said, I've got a lot of great experiences. Like I went and did a year in the on a pipeline crew in the oil patch to help pay for my university debts because of this. And I wouldn't trade that experience for anything in the world. So, yeah, fortunately, I guess I'm in a position. I don't know if I would, I don't think I would change all that much.
Yeah, that's pretty good. And a bit more personal, but do you have a morning routine, whether it's like pre-work or at work?
You know, what's really interesting about COVID, it's sort of, and I think a lot of people have realized it's just freed up so much time. And my commute wasn't bad before. It was sort of 30, 40 minutes on a bad day. But just that whole kind of getting up, getting ready. We have 3 little kids, so part of you're mixing into that, kind of getting kids ready for school and sort of helping get everyone organized. But that time that's been freed up, I've used like twice a week now, kind of ensure I get like a full workout in and a Peloton or something in the morning. That tends to be the morning routine or sort of the mid-morning routine. And I've found that as one of the massive benefits of this whole work from home environment. And our business now, we're converting like permanently to more of a flexible kind of work from home arrangement, because you just realize it's one thing we can't give to people in life in general is more time. And sort of we found this way to give everyone kind of an extra hour to 2 hours a day. So my morning routine now, it's depending, again, we have 3 little kids. So depending on how the night went, which you can't control whatsoever, I really try my best between sort of 8 and 11, just get a half-hour sweat at some point. And I just find it entirely changes the trajectory of the entire day.
Absolutely. And which book have you given the most?
Sorry, say it again.
Which book have you given the most?
Which book have I given the most?
Yeah, that's right.
Cool. It's not going to be very inspiring. I think when I read it a few years ago and I just loved it, was Wilbur Smith, Monsoon. And it's one of the most entertaining, kind of captivating books I've ever read. And it's kind of the old Dutch Indies trade, and kind of the first time people are kind of rounding the horn to go into Africa, and first time you have explorers seeing elephants and so on. I'm sure there's more inspiring books out there. I listened to a great one. What is it called? It's by Andrew Chan. There's Something of Normal People. Sorry, I can't think of the name right now. I listened to the audiobook just in the last 6 months. Phenomenal to think about sort of where the world's going. More of an inspirational book. That one's great. Pure entertainment factor. Wilbur Smith, Monsoon is by far my favorite book, and I've kind of recommended and given that one away lots.
Interesting. And are there any plans you can share with us for 2021, whether it's you in your role or with the company?
It honestly feels like 2021 is sort of keep on keeping on. We're all sort of, as we were just talking about, we're all kind of sitting in this perpetual state of waiting to see what happens next. It's no secret, Canada has sort of botched the vaccine rollout kind of more than anybody else out there. So who knows how long we're in this environment for. It feels like this is very much the time when, especially when you have your family at home and you're used to a life of travel and everything else, it's just such a phenomenal opportunity just to kind of reconnect. So 2021, I know it's not that exciting. It's for us, is really just kind of spend time as a family. Both my parents and my wife's parents and my wife's 95-year-old grandparents are all sort of within an hour or so of us. So we're just kind of fingers crossed those vaccines happen in the near future so we can actually go back and start spending some time with them, because we're here and it's a great time to do it. But that's kind of how we see 2021, is no plans to go anywhere. That's fair. Maybe we get a trip to some sunshine like next December, but
can't wait for that.
Yeah, it feels like that's the world we're in, and we've just had to learn to accept it.
Right, absolutely. And do you have any advice, any piece of advice you would like to share with the YMP members or audience that are listening?
So I've had this conversation with quite a few people in the mining sector. One of the hardest parts of this sort of work from home, virtual COVID environment is if you're established and you have a network and you're within the sector, it's not that bad, because I spend sort of 6 hours a day on calls catching up and kind of just with existing contacts and like you're just sort of naturally just building on your network at any time. It's really difficult if you're new and you don't have those relationships to kind of get in, because a lot of those, if I think back to my time and how I built some of my own relationships in the mining sector, it's at a conference sitting at a lobby bar, or it's a random meeting where I connected with somebody afterwards, or so on. It's a lot of face to face. My only advice to that is kind of, there's no magic to it. You have to work that much harder. You have to spend that much time to try, and whether it's kind of reaching out or having virtual coffees or anything, you got to find ways to connect with people, because any success or any of the things that I've done in the industry, when I think back on it, so much is reliant on just on the people that I've been able to kind of work with and fortunate enough to find myself kind of doing business with and involved with. And so much that just comes from literally just random conversations and so on. So it's my only advice: don't get down too hard when you kind of find sort of it's really hard to get out there. Just kind of keep at it. The world will open back up, and it is going to be important to just find ways to reconnect with people. The only other thing, and I've always given this advice, and I think I've taken it myself too, is everybody, and this isn't just mining, every sector has a way of doing things, and sort of the old guard will always kind of lean towards, here's my experience, here's how things are done. And there's a balance for kind of the newcomers to any sector, and I think mining specifically is finding that balance between what you know and your relationship with technology and where the world sits and everything else, and what is already known about a sector. And don't sort of never discount that. Sort of your understanding of, say you're in a communications role or investor relations, your understanding of TikTok and social media and all of those things is something that sort of that old guard doesn't have, and that is the value that you add. So find that kind of balance between the two, and it's no different if you're a mining engineer. The things that you see in school are very different than what someone learned kind of 30 years as a mining engineer on a mine site. Don't discount that, kind of find ways to bring that into it. So it's just, it's really kind of, it's the only way the mining sector is ever going to evolve, is if people continue to bring in new technologies. Some companies are really good at embracing that, and others aren't. So anyone new to the sector, just kind of have confidence in sort of what you know, what you've learned, and find ways to bring that and introduce that to the mining sector.
Yeah, that's great. Steve, it was like a pleasure speaking to you almost a year later, still in lockdown mode. So thanks again for making time for us. And for everyone listening, just make sure you stay tuned for the announcement of the YMP Award winner of 2021. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, thanks so much. Great to see you.